It starts with a small move, and then a small move becomes a big move, and a big move becomes a very big move. And I've seen people who are preachers, forget about people who love Shabbat. I've seen rabbis, future shlichim, future nevi'im, who had my microphone, who had the trust, who had Yahweh's favor, and they moved to Western Florida. They got out of Yahweh's will, they got out of Yahweh's favor, and they said that they'll have a fellowship in their home in the Panhandle, and that they would go to Georgia and serve Yahweh there with 2 dogs, 2 cats, and 2 goldfish. But the worst part of it is not the 2 dogs, the 2 goldfish, and the 2 cats. The worst part of it is, today they have no desire to love Yeshua. And they're Orthodox Jews. Or they've denied Yeshua. They've denied the true name. How did that happen? Because they thought the favor would always hound them. No. You got to ask for favor. You can never take for granted the favor of Yahweh. If you come back from your backsliding, you ought to wipe your brow and kiss the Kadosh ground where Yahweh has put you. Because next time you may not return. There may not be a next time. I know I'm preaching to somebody.
Amen. Amen.
I came for somebody.
Hallelujah.
Actually, I came for myself also.
Amen.
But I also came for somebody. Baruch Hashem Yahweh.
Amen.
Ivrim 12:15. Ivrim 12:15. I love it. So end your backsliding. And this way that fullness of favor will come upon you, and you don't have to worry about that favor being withdrawn by insulting Yahweh. It insults Yahweh when He deposits great treasures in you, and you don't hold on to those treasures, and you don't value those treasures, and you don't appreciate those treasures. He gets insulted. He doesn't get angry. And praise Yahweh, he doesn't get even, but he gets insulted. And he gets insulted, the day may come when you try to, I've went away from the goodness of Yahweh like 6 times, and every time he takes me back. Yeah, you want to play with that favor? You want to insult the spirit of grace? I don't. And the spirit of favor? I don't. Because there may be a day that your heart no longer desires to return. That's the danger. The danger is not Yahweh won't take you back. That's not the danger. The danger is there may be a day your heart doesn't want to come back to the kingdom of Yahweh. Ouch. That's why you need the favor of weekly Shabbat attendance. We read it in Acts 13. You need that favor. You can't be like the Jews who depart out of the synagogue, Acts 13:42. You've got to be like the Jews who show up next week to see what Rav Shaul and Barnabas were going to say, and to see what Rav Shaul and Barnabas were going to share. Todah Rabbi Yahweh. Todah Rabbi Yahweh. Can I hear a good amen?
Amen.
I said, can I hear a good amen?
Amen.
That's what I thought you'd say. Ivrim 12:15. Take heed lest any man fall short of the favor of Yahweh.
Amen.
Lest any root of bitterness spring up to harm you. Not the person you're bitter against. Any root of bitterness spring up to harm you. And if a root of bitterness springs up to harm you, bank on the fact that many others will be defiled. Listen, bitterness and unforgiveness removes favor. I know a man, I'm not going to say any names, who was so angry and bitter at his parents that he wound up drinking and being dependent on alcohol. This man was called to preach. And today he still works in nightclubs. The favor is there, but the man hasn't returned. Be careful. Some people don't return. And that root of bitterness, notice, that root of bitterness that man and others allow to spring up, harm themselves. They get sicker. They don't get better. They get sicker. And not only they get sicker, they poison the minds of other people around them. You know what I'm talking about, Rebbetzin Rivka? They turn their husband against you and against Yahweh. They turn their wife against you and against Yahweh. Because they've got some bitterness in their heart that don't belong there to begin with. Even if what happened was true, it doesn't belong there. And in most cases, it's imagined transgression. Most of the people that think you've done them harm, it's imagined transgression. It's not real transgression. And even if it is real transgression, your job and my job is to pluck out every root of bitterness, because it will harm you and defile others. Unforgiveness will kill you. It'll send you to an early grave.
Amen. Amen.
It will not allow Job 33:24. Yahweh wants to renew your flesh like a baby's flesh. Yahweh wants to renew the aging process in your life. None of Yahweh's children have to die old. None! We die healthy, we die vibrant until the day Yahweh calls us home. That's favor. That's favor. So if somebody's sitting there and they're sick and they're sick and they're sick, I'm not saying I'm not saying a person is condemned that's sick. I am saying you've got to check, do an inventory and check, is there bitterness and unforgiveness in your heart? And if you can't reconcile with someone, I can give you a diagnosis. Would you allow me to give you a diagnosis right now? If you can't reconcile with someone, and if you can't talk to someone, and if you can't just sit there and hear them out, you know they're going to criticize you, you know they're going to dump on you, you know they're going to give it to you, but if you can't just sit there so that you can reconcile and make things right, it's already there. It's springing up. That bitterness, it will harm you, and will defile all those who have nothing against other people. Todah Rabbi Yahweh. Many will be defiled by roots of bitterness that spring up in our lives. And so we see, notice, verse 15, that bitterness and unforgiveness removes favor. Take heed, lest any man come short of the fullness of Yahweh's favor by holding on to roots, because roots of bitterness don't stay roots. They blossom into branches and vines and offshoots of bitterness. It's like a metastasizing cancer. It spreads. And all those you live with, all those who come into contact with you, will be defiled against another human being who may or may not be innocent, but against Yahweh, who said, forgive 70 times 7.
Amen. Amen.
I can get personal, but I won't, because there's no need to. It's my business. It's my family business. But I've seen this. I've tried this stuff. When you don't talk to someone because you're angry at them and you just stay away from them, it's not just them who's having bitterness. That sometimes you're the one that can't sleep. Sometimes you're the one that's disturbed. Sometimes you're the one that has no shalom because you refuse to pick up the phone and make the first move. If it's bothering you more than it bothers them, you should make the first move. I came for somebody.
Hallelujah.
Todah Rabbi Yahweh. Make the first move. I'm not talking about in a sexual way either. I'm talking about in a reconciling way.
Hallelujah.
So removal of bitterness and removal of roots of unforgiveness restores favor. How do we get our marriage right? We remove the bitterness, we remove the unforgiveness, and all of a sudden, miraculously, we have good sex. Well, how did that happen? You plucked out. Well, she's a foxy mama. What am I missing? What was I thinking of? What was I thinking of? Gott mich helfen. Gott wird helfen. What am I thinking of? Look at those legs. Those legs are always there, partner. Those roots of bitterness. Those roots. Unforgiveness. Bitterness. I'm going to try to act holy because I blew my cover. I'm going to keep going in the sanctified mode right now. Removal of bitterness and unforgiveness restores favor. If you want Yahweh's favor restored in your life, remove bitterness and unforgiveness against Yahweh and against your fellow man. Ephraim 13:9. Is anyone enjoying?
Amen.
Yes.
Ephraim 13:9. Don't miss this. Divine favor, do I have it? Well, let's find out. Be not carried away with different and strange doctrines. Boy, I could preach on this for 5 hours. Ephraim 13:9. Be not carried away with different and strange doctrines. Well, I'm not going anywhere right now, Rabbi. Don't worry, I'm not going to church. I'm just not plugged in right now. I'll plug myself back in soon. Don't worry about me. Everything's cool and kosher. Really? Well, no doctrine, or lack of doctrine, or lack of Torah truth equals strange doctrine. Because if you're not getting Torah truth, then maybe Bill O'Reilly is filling your head, or maybe Rita Cosby is filling your head. It's strange. If it's not Torah, it's strange. We're not talking about folks coming here on Shabbat and going to another congregation. That's strange doctrine. You come here on Shabbat, Yahweh, Yahweh, lai, 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 lai. And then you go next Shabbat or next Sunday, wherever it is, you go to another place. And Señor me dice, Yahovah me dice, Yahovah.
Uh-oh.
Who's Boha? Confused. Strange. Which one is right? That one or that one? Who's right? I don't know. You're confused. It's strange. Oh, everything is strange when you're not grounded in the truth. So, be not carried away with different and strange doctrines. In other words, if you find the truth, stay in it. If you don't find the truth, keep searching. That's not hard. For it is a tough thing that the lave is established with favor. Yahweh wants to establish your heart with favor, divine favor, chen. Not with foods, which has not profited those that have been occupied with that. Can we talk? The church says, I got you. Ephraim 13:9. All y'all kosher folks, and you're so fixated with not eating shellfish and lobster. Don't you know that's not where it's at? Because look at Hebrews 13:9. Hebrews 13:9 says that those who are preoccupied with foods are not, it doesn't profit them. Meaning they're messed up. Meaning it's all about the grace and the blood of Jesus. It's all about the blood of Jesus. And if you get caught up with what foods you eat after you follow Jesus, then you are different and you will get carried about by a strange doctrine. That's what they told me in the church. Read verse 9. They said, if I eat kosher, I'm being carried away by a strange and difficult and dangerous. It's Jewish legalism. Read my lips, Bubba. I am the rabbi, the legalist that your last pastor warned you about. Me. You know why? Because the opposite of legalism is anarchy.
That's right.
It's not grace. It's anarchy. Do what thou wilt. Aleister Crowley. Do what thou wilt. Ozzy Osbourne. Do what thou wilt. And what do? Inject, murder, kill, suicide. Helter skelter. So much for do what thou wilt. So the word of Yahweh talks about favor. Don't be carried away with different and strange doctrines. It's a total thing that the lave is established with favor, not with kosher foods that don't profit those Jews who are occupied with all those laws at the temple, at the altar. Don't get hung up like the Jews. That's what I was taught it said. But what does it really say? What does it really say? What Yahweh is saying to us here is this, brethren. If we major on the minors in Yahweh's purposes, we lose favor. Just think about that while I take a walk. And by the way, leaders, if you think you're a leader and you're taking a walk and you look behind you and there's no one following, you're not leading, you're just taking a long walk. So go for a walk. Hopefully someone behind me. In other words, if we major on the minors in Yahweh's kingdom, we lose favor. That's what it says. It does. Don't be carried away with both different or strange. Does it say untrue? Does it say demonic? Does it say unbiblical? No, it just says different. Give me an example. You've got to talk in tongues to be saved.
Uh-oh.
You ever read that crowd?
Yep, the apostolics. Yep.
That's different. So, in other words, now you go around saying, if you don't talk in tongues, if you believe that, if you don't talk in tongues, you're not saved. Or majoring on the minors, for instance. Hey, Rabbi, you know what? He doesn't believe in the two houses of Israel. So, you know, they need salvation because I'm having them come to the service today. So when they come to the service, you need to pray for their salvation because they don't believe in the two houses. The two houses don't save you. The blood of Yeshua saves you. Only the blood, nothing but the blood, nothing but the pure, kadosh, holy blood of atonement that flows from Emmanuel's veins. So when we put the two houses above the precious, eternal, cleansing blood of Yeshua, we are entertaining strange doctrines. You are about to lose the favor of Yahweh. And we got to be very careful. We got to be very careful in our movement. We got to be very careful because we love Torah. Torah has been taken away from us for so many hundreds of years. We want it so bad. And we desire it so bad. And so we get into Torah. Another example. Am I boring anyone? Please raise your hand if you're bored.
No, you straight.
We get so into our return as Israel that sometimes we start majoring on the minors and we lose the favor of Yahweh. What do I mean? Take the laws of Nadab. Not Nadim, Nadab. Does everybody know the laws of Nadab? That's when a woman has her monthly sickness. The Torah calls it sickness. In modern society, we call it what? Period. But in the Torah, she's sick. And some of you ladies know, that's an accurate description. So we say, hey, Rabbi, I've been reading the Torah and Ephraimite. I'm coming back to Yahweh. I'm reading some of these things. And I noticed that the men and the women don't sit separately. I noticed that some of the men sit at the same seat as the women. And if the women are in Nadab, doesn't that ceremoniously defile the men? So shouldn't you have the men and the women sit separately? Sounds good, right? Huh? See what I mean? That's a strange doctrine. What Yahweh has cleansed, you shall not call unclean. So it's kal vachomer. The plain meaning means women during their monthly cycle are unclean. But the greater principle, kal vachomer, versus the lighter, the heavier principle is that what Yahweh has cleansed, you shall not call common. So when we start focusing in on where our family should be, based on the fact that there is the women and the men are sitting together and the men are being defiled because of the women's menstrual cycle, and we lose focus of the blood of Yeshua, the coming kingdom, Yeshua's return, Yeshua's reign from Yerushalayim, we are now entering strange doctrines. Not that the doctrines are untrue, they're strangely pulling us away from the primary things in the kingdom and from Yahweh's favor. Can I hear a good amen?
Amen.
Now, if there's a synagogue that wants that men and women to sit separately, that's cool, as long as they don't lose focus. But I submit to you, most of those synagogues that get into that kind of secondary issues use the secondary issues to replace the primary issues, which is the blood of Yeshua and his return to rule and reign over the house of David forever.
Amen.
And the sanctifying of his people. We are sanctified forever by the blood of Yeshua. So if we major in the minors in Yahweh's plan, so now we read this verse and it means differently. If we're majoring in keeping kosher, but hating our brother and not being able to forgive our brother and sister, but we're not eating pig, we're not eating shellfish, we're not... Strange, man. Get away from me and you're losing favor with Yahweh. Because it is more important to love and to forgive your brother than it is to keep kosher. Ah! How can that be? Because love is the greatest. 1 Corinthians 13. 1 Corinthians 13 says love is the greatest gift of the Holy Spirit. So we have some folks saying, if you're not talking in tongues, you're not saved. If you're not prophesying, you're not saved. Yahweh says, but how about if you're moving, having your very being in love? That is the greatest gift of the Ruach HaKodesh, is the ability to love the unlovely and the ability to overcome evil with good. That's the greatest manifestation of the Ruach HaKodesh. But we would never consider that brother spirit-filled. So when we begin to major, unfortunately, so that's what it says. Now you'll understand verse 9. It's good that the heart is established with favor. That the heart is not established. Another word for established means fundamentally based. We've got to be based not in food, not in losing weight, not in working out, not in seeking for the fountain of youth or the perpetual fountain of youth. We've got to be established in grace. By grace you are saved through faith, not of yourselves. It is the gift of Yahweh, lest any man boast. That's how you establish the heart in favor. Once the heart is established in favor, eat kosher. Once the heart is established in favor, blow your shofar. But these Jewish believers were establishing their heart in their Torah keeping and not in the favor. And if you establish your heart and your lifestyle in Torah keeping and not in favor, say goodbye to favor, wave as it leaves you. Because let me assure you, when I'm dying in the hospital, Yahweh forbid, that day may come. When you and I are dying in the hospital, it is appointed unto men once to die, then the Shofet, Ivrim 9:27. So when we're sitting there and we're dying, trust me, you're not going to call the doctor and say, "Doctor, come quickly."